Let's begin this video by doing a quick review of some of the annotations that we've already added to our sheets for the Marion. If we first take a look at our site plan, what we can do is we can take a look at what we have done so far. Is going to be we've done some critical dimensions for the location of the house. We've included our site setbacks, a number of information that would be critical not only for the contractor but also for building departments to help ensure that we are within our setback requirements, etc. We've also added some information such as our legal description, our tree schedule. We've got our north arrow. We've got our property lines labeled with their distances, etc. If we go to our next sheet, our A-2, let's go ahead and let's zoom in a little bit on that. And if you could take a look at what we're done is we have gone ahead and we've dimensioned our floor plan. We go to our roof plan. We've also added some dimensions to our roof plan. There may be some modifications we have to do in all of these. And then that sort of leaves us with additional annotations and some dimensions for the elevations. That would be A4 and A5, as well as our final sheet for this set, which is going to be our wall section. So let's just do a quick review on A-1 and let's take a look at a couple of things that I think may still need to be done there, and then we can focus more on annotating and putting additional information on the floor plan. So let's take a look at our site plan. I'm going to go ahead and open up our viewport. I'm going to make sure we're locked, and I'm going to start doing a little bit of a review on some of the things that I may want to adjust or change. There's actually just some minor fine-tuning that we may want to do, such as I would like to move this tree schedule. I'm going to put my ortho on so it stays lined up. Maybe that label should be a little bit closer down to there. That was a very minimal change. Very minimal stuff. Let's say I want to relocate this, maybe center it a little bit. Okay, I can take a look and I can see a couple of things that I don't want to show up. If you notice our roof layer, our A-roof, the way that we've been doing our layer control was we changed the thickness of it and the line type of it, or the line weight and the line type. But what we did is we forgot to do our cricket, or what we call a saddle, around our chimney. So if you notice, we've got a dark line here and we've got some dark lines in here that represent the saddle. So what we need to do is we need to find our layer, and we can do two things from it. What we can do is either turn it off, which I think would be a good case in here because it's not going to help us, or we could change the line weight and the line type. What I'm going to decide to do on here, I'm going to go ahead and go to my find the layer, and there it is, a roof chimney, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it off, and I can simply do that by clicking on here and clicking on there, and that looks much better. So let's go ahead and zoom back out. I want to modify this a little bit because we really don't need this elevation note twice. We only need it here at the top. We may even want to put top of finished floor or top of slab here. So let's go ahead and eliminate this down here. And I'm going to back up that and just go to that. And I'm going to go ahead and move this over. I'm going to line it up. So it lines up with that. And as I mentioned before, we have to give some sort of reference to what we are giving the elevation of. So I'm going to go ahead and move this down to there. Move this up so that there is no conflict with that line. In fact, I can go ahead and move the whole thing up. Like that. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And just for the sake of consistency, I'm going to go ahead and modify this, and I'm going to say top of slab. Typically, the building department might want you to put finished floor elevation. All depends. Good idea is to go find out for building department requirements what they want to show there. Typically it has to do with a finished floor, and that's for flood insurance purposes and so on. But I'm going to go ahead and just put top of slab here. And I'm going to bring that in just a tad closer and do the same thing with both of these. Now, as I mentioned before, our elevation 0, 0 is what we call a benchmark elevation that is going to be used in construction, especially to determine what our top of beams are, what our bearing heights are, etc. The 5 plus NAVD is a reference to a national vertical datum that what it does is based on the high tide marks, what the water level is, etc. They have go ahead and given it a relationship. So our 0 feet 0 inches is directly relationed to our plus 5 feet NAVD. This used to be NVGD, and they changed back in 1988. They went ahead and changed the format for this. Due to better satellites and so on, they were able to get much more accurate. So let's take a look at some of the additional information that we may be missing, or some of the things that we think may not be either on the right layer or showing that should not be showing. One of the other things I do want to show here is this is going to be our center line. So what I want to make sure is that we are going to go ahead and put a center line mark here for our road, and maybe put the name of the road in here. So since most of this text is at the right height, I'm going to go ahead and bring that down here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to edit this to show the street name. I'm also going to go ahead and copy it over to here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create two. I'm going to copy that also, and I'm going to mark that as an L. And just move this, take my ortho off, and maybe move that like that. And move this over to here. So that basically is a symbol that's telling me that is the center line of the road. Now, a couple of things I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about the size of that. I may want to increase the size. So I have a couple of options. I can either change to another multi-line text height that'll increase it, or I can actually just modify this one itself by going to the properties and changing my paper text height from 3/32 maybe to 1/8 of an inch. So that's going to increase the size a little bit, make it a little bit more readable. Now that's something I'd like to avoid to do, because I like to set up clear annotative styles or text styles that are specific to a certain size. So this is one of those rare exceptions that we may want to change that. Now, where do I get the information for the name of the road? Well, it's the same place where I got the legal description. It's going to be from a survey. So if I open up my survey right in here, let's go ahead and we can zoom out and take a look at what the survey looks like in here. Not only did I have the legal description and where my north arrow was there, but I also have an address, and it's telling me that the address for this is Northeast 17th Street in Fort Lauderdale. So I think as far as the information that I want to put in there, I'm going to go ahead and change this and put in Northeast 17th Street. And I think that should be sufficient for that information. Let's go ahead and double click outside so we're back in paper space, and let's zoom out. I think we've done almost everything that we want to do in here. What we have done is we created a dim style layer and a annotation layer that is specific to the site plan, and you're going to see how that's going to help us, and at the same time require us to do some corrections on some of the additional sheets. So let's take a look at our A-2 floor plan, and You can see that some of the dimensions that we have there are correct, but if you take a look at, we also have some of the information from the notes that we had on the site plan that we do not want to show here, including this elevation symbol right here or the side setback notes. That's a simple solution to the problem. So what we can do is let's go ahead and open up our viewport, make sure it's locked, and all we need to do is really we need to freeze that layer, and hopefully that style will come off. Now, why did this one not come off? And I'm going to go back to model space and show you where we got that information. What I had done is I had created a number of tags here that could be used in different sheets. But in doing that, the layer that I put them in was G-anno. G stands for general, and annotation could be either a dimensioned or a note or so on. But in doing that, it means that I may or may not want to turn it off on a specific sheet. So once I place this where I want it, I will then go and change the layer to the layer that I want it to be showing at. So if I go back to the floor plan and I take a look at all of this, again, if you highlight it, you can see that it's G-anno. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of it, and I'm going to change its layer to the layer that I want it to be shown at, but obviously I don't want to see it here at my A- floor plan. So A-2 floor plan. So let's go ahead and let's find that layer that we want to change it to. So I had created the A-anno note layer, and then I had created an A-anno note floor and an A-anno note site. So what I want to do is I want to change it to that layer, and it automatically turns off. So let's take a look and see if there is anything else that we want to show here or not to show here. So looks like we're doing pretty good in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to start annotating, and we're going to be adding notes such as room names and any additional notes such as maybe appliance types, shelving that we may want to show. I also take a look at here and I can see that there are some dimensions that I think were missing, but I can tell that are on there now. So that's excellent. So let's go ahead and let's start doing some annotations. So we're going to go ahead and once again we can gather our information from any existing drawing, whether it's the Marion sample, or we can also go to our book source to take a look at the Marion markups. The information we can get can come from the Marion markups that we had previously. So if we find that drawing and we call it up here, you can tell that we've got some modifications to what the book had requested. There's some additional information that we want to show and we want to put on our drawings. There's the room names. We are not going to be putting our room sizes as they show here. This was more of a sales brochure type of drawing as opposed to a set of construction documents. We will have clearly defined all of these as well as our door sizes, etc. But there's some additional information that we're going to be adding to it. So why don't we begin by putting in our room names to each one of the rooms, then we'll begin tagging some of the other items as we go. So let's go back to our drawing, and first what we got to do is decide what our text style is going to be. So if we go back to our site plan sheet, I'm going to be using this text style right in here. So the only difference is going to be that I'm going to want it at a slightly different scale. So this text, as it was indicated here, was supposed to be, I think, 1/8 of an inch high or 1/4 of an inch high, and it's shown that size right here at 1/8 of an inch. So let's go ahead and let's open up our viewport here and let's find out what style we ended up using. So if we go to our properties, you can see that the style is standard. So let's go ahead and close that out. I'm going to go ahead and close out my viewport. Let's go ahead and zoom extents on that. And let's go ahead and let's start with our drawing set to model space. I'm going to go ahead and go to annotate. Make sure I'm set to standard. Okay, if you want to review this, it's telling us we want it to be at 1/8 inch high. Set to current already. And I'm going to make sure my cap locks is on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start going through our drawing here and begin to name each one of our rooms first. So I'm going to move that out of the way so I can see what we're doing. If you had a printed copy, you could be looking at that. So I'm going to click in here. I'm going to go ahead and with the multi-line text, I'm going to go ahead and create a text box. And let's start with breakfast. And I'll move that down. There's a couple of ways we can do this. We could duplicate this over and over through all of these. The other thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I've got the right size for this. Now I really do like the font style. This is an Arial narrow, but I don't like the size. Now I could do the same thing that I did for that CL that we increased, but I don't want to do that as a habit. One of the ways to resolve this problem is to create another multi-line text style that would reflect the size that we want this when we print it. Now, trying to debate whether the right size would be 3/16 of an inch or whether a 1/4 inch would be better for the size of this. I personally don't like to get it too big because it might interrupt with some of the things, all of these dimensions and so on. So how do we do that? Well, we can go to our Annotate tab and go to our text panel, and let's go ahead and let's click on this text style manager right here. And if you look at, we have the standard text style right here. It's got our Arial narrow, and there's the size that we have designated for that with a width factor of 1. All of that looks great with the exception of the 1/8 of an inch. So what I want to do is I want to create a new one. Now with that highlighted, I want to create new. Save your changes. Yes, they're really, let's say no for a second. Cancel, and let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and new. Sure, let's save the changes. And we're going to call this one, let's go ahead and let's call this one room labels. Do OK. And if you notice, it took on, now there it is right there, it took on the features of our standard text style. We do want it annotated, but we want to change this. Let's go ahead and let's change this to a little bit bigger. I'm going to go ahead and change it to 1/4 inch, and let's see how that looks like. So I'm going to do apply, then set current, and do close. Now I can just take a look at how this would look if I change styles, and I can change that by highlighting it, go into properties and changing from standard, changing that to the new one that we just did, which is room label. And that looks pretty good, but to me it's a little bit too big. So I'm going to go ahead and modify that style. So I'm going to go back up here to the Annotate tab under the text panel. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure you've got room label in here. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to 3/16 of an inch. That's sort of a good compromise between the 1/8 and the 1/4. Set current and close. So let's make sure that we've got that modified. And if you notice what happened in here, it's got the annotative style is correct, but it did not change what I already had. So I need to actually change this to 3/16. And that changes the size, I think, a little bit, and that looks a little bit more elegant. Again, depending on where you work or what your personal preference is, you may want this in a different font, you may want it in a different size, you may underline it, you may even do it in italics if you want to. So let's go ahead and let's work our way around, and we're going to just use the same names that we had in the Marion book example. So I'm going to go ahead and multi-line text. I'm going to create another one in here. I'm going to make sure that our cap lock is on again, and we're going to call this one family room. Now we know that all of these are the right size now. And rather than retyping and creating a text box, I'm just going to start moving them around. And I am going to locate them to where they are not in the way of some of the other information that we want. Let's go ahead. Now some of these we're going to go ahead and change back to some other sizes. So, and we're going to relocate. So we know that this is going to be the kitchen. We've got a utility room. We've got a dining area. We've got a two-car garage. This I'm not sure we're going to do, but we're going to go ahead and call that out, and we're going to call this out here. So let's go ahead and let's start adjusting these before we get into something else and forget what we're doing. So this one is going to be covered porch. There's a lot of names that when you look at sales brochures that these have been adjusted to. They call them lanais, they call them a bunch of different things. Let's go ahead and copy this one down here. And this one's going to be our foyer. Zoom back out. I don't like its location. So let's go ahead and modify that to about here. Let's call this, we can also call this covered porch. Now this is a good example of where it gets a little bit big, but if we properly locate it, it should be acceptable. This one they just called dining. They didn't put dining room in it. And again, exactly what you name these is sort of preference. And the more you line things up to where this sort of lines up with that, okay, the better that your plan is going to look. So let's go ahead and let's adjust this one. And they call this laundry. I'm going to call it utility. And I can even abbreviate it to util. So it takes up less space, but is still very definable on what it represents. Let's go ahead and do this as garage. Some people will call it two-car garage. So let's just put it right in there. So that looks good. That looks good. We're doing pretty good there. Let's go ahead and change this to kitchen. And notice I'm not putting it over this because there may be too many lines. Now in most cases that's going to be alright anyways, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, that looks good. Alright, so this one we're going to go ahead and call bath. You notice I'm having to pretty much adjust all of these in terms of their location so that they are not in conflict with anything else. Let's call this master suite. This one, I can leave it this size or I can make it a little bit smaller font, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that and just put WIC, which is an abbreviation for walk-in closet. And let's put it right here. This is going to be our powder room. Now I don't want to write powder room in there, so I am going to go ahead and let's see what we got going in here. I'm just going to put PDR. That's pretty standard in terms of what that represents. And let's put that somewhere like that. Again, that's a little bit tight in there, so I may want to lower these dimensions. So this is all adjustments that you guys can do. So if I want to lower this, I'm going to make sure my ortho is in and bring this down to about here. And that allows me to move this, take my ortho back off and move it to somewhere in here. So I don't like what's happening here, so I can easily just grab that by there and pull it over to there. That looks great. Okay. So let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and call this one bedroom 3. Now you can put the number symbol if you want, or we can just leave it that way. Put my ortho on, let's just leave that in here. And this one we can put as bath 3. That looks good. This one is going to be bedroom 2. Okay, that all looks good. Walk-in closets, powder room, master bath, bedroom. Now this isn't quite a walk-in closet, so I'm not going to bother labeling that. And some of these things that we're going to be labeling are going to require additional labeling, such as this would be WH for water heater or EWH for electric water heater, but we're not going to use this font this size. We may want to get into a smaller font, which is very similar to the font that we're using for this. So we would change our style to go and use that. So same thing with something as small as here, as maybe that you consider a broom closet, or something like this might be a linen closet. We can label those, but let's go ahead and label them with a much smaller font, such as shower, located there. Okay, I think we're good also in terms of moving this tag a little bit out of the way so it's not crowding too much right there. So as you can tell, what we're doing is, as we go, we are fine-tuning some of this stuff. Okay, and we can actually, let's go ahead and put that one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put it here, but to where I'm not really getting in the way of too much. I don't want it conflicting with this one, and this one's going to be a shower door, so that one we're not even tagging. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one here, and I'm going to see if I can move my dimension over. Not ideal, but it seems to work for me. Okay, some of these I could move up a little bit, but those look okay. All right, so that's clear. That's 13, that's 12. I'm going to go ahead and call this as a shower enclosure with glass door. So we're going to add that information. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. There's our garage, our covered porch. We could call that front porch. Covered front porch, but that's just too much information, not necessary. Utility, etc. Now the reason we label most of this is because sometimes they'll have a room finish schedule, and we would need to put a room tag here. The same way that we've tagged our doors, we would be tagging each one of the rooms. But for this assignment, we're not going to be doing that. So let's take a quick look around to see if there's anything missing that we want to change. I think everything looks pretty good for now. And it looks pretty good. Now these are our main labels, our main tags for the rooms and so on, but we also have some small areas such as this broom closet, or this area, let's say another one right in here, maybe for the water heater. We could do that one with just our regular text, but there may be a couple of them that we want to do a little separately. such as this one, which may be a pantry. We may just want to put a P in there. In fact, we could probably do that with one of these, but for rooms this size, we may want to change it from this 3/16 inch back to the 1/8 inch that we had used previously. So that's really easy to do. All we would need to do is to go up into here and change our current text style to that. Go in here, and what we can do is we can create one right here, our text box, and with cap still on, we can go pantry, and there you go. So we've got something that's a little bit more reasonable in terms of the size that fits in there. Let's go ahead and copy that one and bring it into here. And we can put that one either as linen, or we can put it as broom. That would be BR. Or M. Let's do that. BRM. Now, some of these abbreviations will vary from company to company, as well as the size and the font and everything else that you may want to do there. Let's go ahead. I'm not going to do the regular closets. I am going to do this walk-in closet, even though it is debatable whether it's a walk-in or not, but because it's additional depth, I'm going to go ahead and do that and change it to WIC. And let's relocate it. Right into there. This one's linen, so we want to label that. So once again, I will abbreviate it with LIN. Now, if this was a more complex set of documents, you may have an abbreviation list. Usually that is not uncommon with commercial work. This one is going to be water heater. I'm not going to label the room, but I will label the item on there. This one we may change later on to an AC closet, so I'm not going to label that either. We've got another linen closet right here. And we've got the pantry right in there and our broom closet there. So I'm going to copy one of these again from here to here. And change this to LIN. Sometimes L is sufficient. I think we had the room here, so I'm just going to move it a little bit out of the way. And here we got a room right in there, so that's basically where your water closet is. So this is literally what they would have called a water closet if it had the tank above it to hold the water for flushing. So we're going to leave that and just treat the whole thing as a master bath, as part of the master bath area right in there. And let's go ahead, and I'm going to label using the same size that we had the fireplace right here, and FP should be sufficient for that. Now, there may be a line here that I want to do as to show the header or the mantle, where the mantle would go above. That's standing out a little bit too much in terms of not differentiate what's inside and what's outside, or the hearth area here. All right, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and save my drawing. I should be doing that constantly. All right, so with our sort of second level of annotating for rooms and so on, what we can do is begin to annotate some specific items that I think are going to be important. Now, I don't want those at this same size, or definitely not at this size, but I want them to be clear enough to at least relate to some of the other sizes that we have for annotations, such as these dims, which we did in annotative style. So let's go ahead and let's change our style one more time. This time go to annotative, which is going to be at 3/32 of an inch. And we can begin by creating a text box. And I'm just going to start with, again, some abbreviations. as sort of as refrigerator. I'm going to go ahead and move this, and we can move that right into here. Now, if you notice, what I'm going to do is, when you start getting into these more specific items, sometimes it helps and benefits the drawing if you can rotate them so they don't have to be horizontal. Now, as far as the room labels and so on, it makes sense to keep them horizontal, but something like this where REF represents refrigerator, we can just, it's easier to place it in front like that. And we can continue any of the other ones that we need drawn like that. We can go ahead and change that, and let's bring that to here, and we can change that to here. Let's go ahead and let's label this. This one is going to be, let's call it cooktop. Let's locate it there. This one's going to be a double oven. Can abbreviate double and then oven. And let's bring that down. Now, once again, this is one of those instances where we may want to modify some of the dimensions and so on, but I'm just going to bring it in close enough so there's no question on which one we're trying to label as the double oven. I could also bring these down or change my dimension location down a little bit. Again, that's almost going to be a little bit of a personal choice. Let's go ahead and continue. We're going to go ahead and copy some of these items. And we're going to put that in there because what we're going to do is we're going to call for shelves. And we could probably just do, yeah, let's go ahead and do S. And let's go ahead and abbreviate it. And I'm going to move this up. Now, if you have enough room, there's no need to abbreviate, so let's go ahead and change this and change that to shelves. And we can copy that. Put our ortho on, we can bring that straight up to here. And that's going to be acceptable even though it's kind of in the way. Just want to make sure that even something as tight as this, we don't have the part of the E in the way, so that seems to work pretty good right there. Let's go ahead and copy. This one. Let's bring it over here. I'm going to rotate it back. Put on my ortho so we know it's perfect. I'm going to put shower. Copy that. Go ahead and put right in here. I'm going to put tempered glass enclosure. Now, once again, that is not long enough, so I'm going to need to stretch this out. I'm going to zoom out. And that gives the contractor some additional information on what we've got going on there. there may be a lot of details and a lot of additional information that we've got. Let's go ahead and let's just do water heater. We haven't decided yet whether it's going to be gas or whether it's going to be electric, so let's not identify it as such right now. And this is a location where I think we're going to be putting an interior AC unit. So this house, I guess when it was originally designed, was designed for up north, and it didn't have an AC unit location for it. A lot of times we'll build an enclosure here in the garage for it. But what we're going to do in this case, we're going to go ahead and we are going to put an air handler unit here, and then we're going to put the condensing unit outside somewhere over in here. So we're going to be careful to show it not only here, but also to show it on our site plan, as well as pool equipment, which is going to be important to show. So we may have a couple of items in here that we want to express that have not been expressed yet. So let's go ahead and let's make some modifications here. Now I could do this by going right into model space and making my changes here. So let's go ahead and let's do that. All I'm going to do is delete this. I'm going to find out what layer I made this in. Okay, so it's an A appliance layer, and I'm going to make sure that is my current layer. There's my A appliance, and I'm just going to draw a rectangle. Now I'm going to go ahead and draw it all the way across right here, and then I'm going to go ahead and offset it 4 inches. Usually there's a requirement for distance away from the walls and so on for this. I'm going to put AHU for air handling unit, and I'm going to go ahead and move this over. Now this may end up being just a little bit too small of a unit. We want to make sure it's going to fit through the door. So this was sort of a last minute adjustment here. So we would have to coordinate with the air conditioning contractor or the AC engineer to make sure that we've got enough room that meets all the code requirements in terms of clearances, etc., before we size this one out. This also gives us the opportunity to have a return air grill here, or to have one coming in from the top, or actually use a louvered door for that. So we've at least now we've got a water heater and we've got an air handling unit. What we can do is then begin to add one to the outsides here. Now the problem with doing all of this is there seems to be a lot of information here. So we might get a little confused on where we want to indicate that. So here we got our air handling unit, and outside we're going to do our condenser. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to locate that on the outside. I'm going to look at my site plan again, and we're going to need a pool pump location. We could try to do that on this side, or we can do 2 of them on this side. The important thing is that when someone comes in to repair, that they're going to have access to it, etc. So let's go ahead and let's go to our floor plan. And if we put our air conditioning unit here, we're going to want to put it on a concrete pad. So I'm going to go ahead and size. I'm still in A appliance. I am inside model space. So I'm going to go ahead and place one here, not too close to this window so the noise isn't too much. I'm going to start here right on the wall, and I'm going to assume that our AC unit is going to be 30 by 36. At least our condenser, 30, comma 36. And let's draw that right there. I'm going to go ahead and move that down. Let's move it to about here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move it away from the wall. We don't want it right up against the wall. I'm going to move it about 8 inches, or let's say a foot off the wall. Right there. So that looks pretty good. Then I'm going to go ahead and offset it 4 inches, and that is going to represent the concrete pad that it's going to be on. So that takes care of our air handling unit. That could be a little bit closer. I don't think it needs to be that. You just want to make sure that wherever the air intakes are for this, that there's going to be plenty of room for it. So I'm going to go ahead and move this about 4 inches in, and I'm going to go ahead and copy once again some of our text and bring that over to here, F8. And place that right there. And let's go ahead and change this and let's call that AC. What I can do is now just copy it up to here and put our pool pump up there. Now it obviously is not going to be as big, or there may be a couple of them. One may be the pool heater, the other one may be the pool pump. But I'm going to go ahead and reduce the size of this using the stretch command and stretch it in maybe about let's say 10 inches, and let's just call this pool EQ for equipment, and we can decide later on exactly what it's going to be. And I'm going to move that to, let's say right there is good. Okay, so we've got our pool equipment and we've got our AC. Now if you have more than one AC, you may want to number these. There's also some blocks that you can use for that. Some of them are round, some of them are rectangular like this. Again, that's going to depend on the manufacturer and the make of the AC that you choose. So let's go ahead and let's close our model space for now. Let's do a little bit of review. So we've got our pool equipment here. We've got our AC unit outside. We've added an air handling unit on the inside. Let's take a look at something like this for the sink. We don't really need to label it, including the tub, etc. We may want to label this if it is going to be a spa tub that's going to require electrical. We would want to label that so the electrician or the electrical engineer would be able to provide power for it, including an access panel. Sometimes those are actually accessible from the outside or from a room like this to where it's less noticeable if you have a very nice finish on the front of these. So that looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to check a couple things. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up my viewport again and making sure it's locked. Let me go ahead and see, this is our A shelf above. This is our A ceiling above. This is our A case hidden. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see if there is a general A hidden layer. That's for case, ceiling above. Because as I mentioned before, I wanted to do something with the fireplace up above to indicate that line. So there's a slab hidden. Okay, so there really is not a layer yet to represent that. So what we may want to do is, let's go ahead and go to our layer properties. And I'm just going to go ahead and create a new one. Make sure it's going to be on hidden. So I go there, and that's going to be easy to do. I'm just going to go take my cap lock off. A, H, I. Let me see, how did I do the other hiddens in there? Or above. I just said A above. Let's go ahead and do that. A above, hidden, 2, that looks pretty good. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I've created my layer. I'm going to close that out. I'm going to make sure I'm in the right layer here. So I'm going to go to A above. This is alphabetical, so that works out pretty good. And I'm just going to draw a line from here to here. And now I've got the edge of my fireplace that looks a little bit more clear in terms of what I wanted to do, the information that I wanted to give on there. Alright, that looks very good. Let's go ahead and close our viewport and let's zoom out. And that looks excellent. We've got our information where we want. There's our foyer. I'm going to go ahead and change this to covered entry. So I needed to open up my viewport. So I'm open again, and let's go ahead and change this to covered entry. Once again, that's going to let it vary. Let me go ahead and change that to cap lock. It's going to let it vary from our covered porch in the back. That looks excellent. Close our viewport. Let's zoom out. So as I mentioned before, we've added a couple of external items right in here that we're going to probably have to label in our site plan also. So there are two items right in there. And if you take a look at all of these items that we have in here, we don't want these names to come out. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the proper layer is the items for the pool equipment and so on. So the same thing that we had happen in the floor plan about all the information from the site plan there, all of this labeling, it's not necessary in the site plan. So let's go ahead and let's open up our viewport, and with the viewport open we can actually take our freeze and we can go and freeze these layers right into there. Now the one thing that it did was it went ahead and took the information that we wanted here for the AC unit away, as well as the pool equipment. So we actually have to come back in here. Let's go to our Annotate tab. We're under Annotated, which is what we want. We're going to go ahead and we're going to create, and we're going to call that pool equip. I can tell right now that it's not going to be in the right layer. Let's go ahead and check it out, and I put it in a hidden layer. Luckily it's too small that you won't see it, but I want to make sure I am in my Anno note site so I don't accidentally turn it off. So this one I don't necessarily, because of its size, need to put directly above it, but this will also help in identifying what these units are. So this one I can put inside if I wanted to, but I'm just going to label that AC right there and move it in. Now I don't worry sometimes about this is because there's going to be a variation in line weight for these, so whatever is going to be bolder or at a heavier line weight is going to be coming out okay. So let's go ahead and let's close our viewport and let's zoom extents here, and that's looking great. We put our pool equipment in here. We've got all the information, at least for now, that we want. We're always going to be reviewing these as we continue these drawings. So let's take a look and do a quick review again of the floor plan and see if we've got any information that we're missing. There's always going to be information that you're missing, but at some point you take it to a standard that you're used to and putting all the information that is going to be necessary for the scale of the project, for the type of the project, for how it's contractor, whether you're doing what's called a builder set of documents or what we call a complete set of documents for the clients. So this looks excellent. I think we're good with this. I think we're good with the site plan up to now. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the items on the roof plan that we want to note. We'll be coordinating that with the elevations and with the wall section in terms of indicating what our overhangs, what our roofing material is going to be, etc. Now, having said that, I'm going to look back into here and I want to put one more piece of additional information in here. I forgot to label my washer, my dryer, my laundry tub, and including my attic access right in here. So let's go ahead, open up our viewport once more, use our copy command. I'm going to go ahead and grab this one right in here, and I'm going to bring that down to here, and to here, and I'm going to change this one to LT for laundry tub. Cap locks on. Let's go ahead and move that to there. I'm going to change this before I move it. So this one is obviously going to be the W for washer. And this one is going to be our dryer. D is sufficient for that. Okay, that looks great. I'm going to go ahead and copy one of these that is already in the right direction. Bring that down to here, and I'm going to put it right above it. And I'm going to call that one attic access. I'm going to stretch that out a little bit. So now one of the things you got to worry about the attic access is, if you notice, this is our line of our garage door. As it rolls up, it extends to here. You don't want to put your attic access in here. Okay, so you want to make sure it's out of the way, as well as when you decide to do electrical plans such as lighting, etc. So let's go ahead and let's close our viewport. Let's go to zoom extents. I think that looks pretty good. We'll take another look at this before we're ready to print or we're ready to submit these plans. So next video we'll focus on adding some additional annotations to the roof plan and to the elevations.